At Thanksgiving, my brother said he deserved my inheritance since I'd wasted on therapy. My dad backed him. They burned my lawyer's letter, laughed, and kicked me out. So a year later, I showed up at their door with a court order and a sheriff. I was standing in my dad's living room in Columbus, Ohio, still wearing my coat, because I knew the second I sat down, someone would say something that made me want to walk right back out. Thanksgiving at my family's house always felt like a performance, but that year it was worse. The air was thick and weird, like everyone already knew something I didn't. My brother, Ryan, was carving the turkey like he owned the whole damn house. He kept glancing at me with this smug half-smile he gets when he's working up to something nasty. I tried to ignore it. I focused on the cranberry sauce and the hum of the football game in the background. Just breathe, I kept telling myself. Then he cleared his throat, tapped his knife on the cutting board and said, "So, Dad and I talked about the inheritance, and we agreed it makes more sense if I get most of it. You'll just waste it on therapy." The room went silent. Even the TV seemed to cut out for a second. I just stared at him, because surely he wasn't serious. But he smirked, and my dad didn't say a single word to stop him. I finally said, "That's not funny." Dad shrugged like he'd been waiting for this. "He's not joking, you've always needed help, and you make emotional decisions. I need someone stable handling the estate." I felt my stomach drop. My face got hot. "I've been stable for years," I said. "I've worked my ass off to get better." Ryan snorted. "Exactly, you need help to stay normal, I don't." Then he reached into a drawer, pulled out an envelope, my attorney's envelope, the one I'd sent them 2 weeks earlier to start the estate process, and he tossed it onto a lit candle on the table. Dad actually laughed as it curled and blackened. My legal documents burned in front of me while they stood there like it was some kind of family joke. I couldn't even move. I felt like I wasn't in my own body. "That letter cost money," I finally managed to say. "Then don't waste money next time," Ryan shot back. "Anyway, you shouldn't be making decisions about the estate without us." Dad folded his arms. "Honestly, you're getting worked up. Maybe this dinner isn't a good place for you to be right now." That was his way of saying leave. He didn't even try to soften it. I stood up slowly. "You're kicking me out on Thanksgiving." "No one's kicking you out," Dad said. "We're asking you to calm down and get some perspective. If you can't do that here, maybe go home." Ryan opened the door for me, actually opened it, like he was a bouncer throwing out a drunk stranger. "Have a good night," he said, all fake sweetness. "Get some rest for your mental health." I walked out into the cold, shaking. My hands were numb, not from the weather but from the shock. They burned my attorney's letter. They laughed. They treated me like I was unstable for being upset about it. I sat in my car for a long time. I thought about driving back, screaming, breaking something. But instead, I just sat in the quiet and stared at the house where I grew up, the house that used to feel like safety. Something inside me cracked that night, not in a loud way, in a quiet, final way. And as I finally pulled out of the driveway, one thought repeated in my head, clear as a knife edge. They have no idea what they just started. I didn't grow up thinking my family hated me. That's the part that still messes with my head. When I think back to my childhood in Columbus, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't some horror show either. It was more like death by 1,000 little cuts, things I didn't see clearly until I got older. My mom was the only soft place I had. She noticed things. She asked if I was okay. She took me to therapy when the panic attacks started in high school, and she didn't act embarrassed about it. She was the buffer between me and the two people who always made me feel like I had to apologize for existing. My dad and my older brother, Ryan. Dad wasn't cruel in an obvious way. He just treated me like a fragile appliance he regretted buying. If I got overwhelmed, I was dramatic. If I cried, I was too sensitive. If I needed help, I was needy. Meanwhile, Ryan could screw up anything, grades, jobs, relationships, and Dad still called him the responsible one. It was like they lived in a world where I was permanently 12 years old and Ryan was the chosen adult of the family. Mom used to say, "Your dad doesn't understand feelings, and your brother copies him." I held onto that like a life raft, but then Mom got sick. It happened fast, breast cancer that turned out to be way more advanced than anyone realized. She was gone within 8 months. The day she died, the whole house felt different, like something in the foundation cracked. And without her there to soften anything, Dad and Ryan settled into their roles as if they'd been waiting. Suddenly, I was the unstable one. the one who needed managing. The one Dad kept pulling aside to say, "Are you sure you're okay? You seem worked up," even when I wasn't. I felt like I was losing my mom and my identity at the same time. The inheritance fight started about 6 months after Mom passed. I was the one who brought up the estate because Dad kept pushing it off, pretending everything would magically sort itself out. Mom had left us equal shares, me, Dad, and Ryan, but she also left a letter for me. I didn't tell them that, not yet. It wasn't instructions, it was more like reassurance. She'd written, "Don't let anyone make you feel small. You are steady even when they don't see it." I read that line until the paper started to tear. I went to therapy, took care of myself, kept my job at the law office downtown, and rebuilt my life piece by piece. I thought maybe one day things with my family would level out. But every holiday, every birthday, every visit, the same pattern repeated. Ryan talked over me, Dad dismissed me, and both of them acted like therapy had turned me into some kind of fragile glass doll. I should have seen the Thanksgiving blow-up coming. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. Dad had started making hints about adjusting things for practicality. Ryan kept asking weird questions about my savings, my mental health, my job stability, stuff he never cared about before. But I didn't put it together. I honestly believed they would at least be fair. The night after Thanksgiving, I sat in my apartment in German Village and reread Mom's letter again. Something shifted inside me. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to explain myself to people who only listened when it suited them. If they wanted a fight over the estate, then they were going to get a real one. And I knew something they didn't. I wasn't the fragile one. I spent the weeks after that Thanksgiving trying to convince myself it was just another ugly family moment, the kind we'd all pretend didn't happen. But then the paperwork started disappearing. First it was the notarized copy of Mom's I'd given Dad. He swore he'd never received it, even though I watched him put it in his desk drawer months earlier. Then the financial statements Mom kept in her safe, documents I knew she'd shown me, suddenly weren't where she thought they were. Dad insisted she must have thrown them out before she died. Ryan, of course, acted confused. "Maybe Mom misunderstood how her accounts worked," he kept saying. "Maybe you misunderstood." Like grief had made me hallucinate my own mother's estate planning. At first I thought it was incompetence. Then I noticed Dad's desk drawer had a new lock on it. By January, Ryan had moved into the house, just until Dad got back on his feet. That was the excuse. But every time I visited, he was parked at the kitchen table going through mail that wasn't his. I'd catch him holding Dad's bank statements, Mom's old file folders, even Dad's checkbook. He'd close them slowly when I walked in, like he wanted me to see him hiding something. One night he said, "You really should have given up your key by now. You don't live here." I said, "It's still my family home." He smiled like I'd told a joke. "Yeah, we'll see." The escalation got worse when I tried to resend documents to Dad. I emailed copies. I printed new ones. I even paid for a second attorney letter. Dad claimed he never received any of them. That's when my attorney, Lauren, someone I trusted with my whole life, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "They're building a case. Not a legal one, a narrative one. They want to paint you as unstable so you'll back down and stop asking questions." I knew she was right. I knew it in my bones. Dad had always let Ryan steer the tone of the family. And Ryan loved power. He loved being the center of the room, loved being the one who made decisions, loved being the person Dad turned to. Me. I was the emotional inconvenience. In February, I caught Ryan going through Mom's old jewelry box. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Inventory. Dad asked me to help." I didn't believe him. I think he knew I didn't because he stood up, walked right into my space, and whispered, "If you think you're getting equal anything, you're delusional. Dad knows it. I know it. You're the only one who doesn't." The final straw was in March. Dad told me I needed space, and that coming to the house made things tense. He asked for my key back, just for now. I refused. 5 days later, Ryan told me someone had accidentally set aside a box of my things in the garage. When I went to pick it up, it wasn't my things at all. It was a pile of old junk, broken ornaments, a shower curtain, mismatched shoes. Things that weren't mine but were clearly chosen to send a message. You're not part of this family anymore. That night I sat on my kitchen floor for a long time. I wasn't crying. I was just still, like my mind had stepped out of my body and was waiting for me to catch up. Then I said out loud, "They're daring me." And I realized I knew exactly how far they were willing to go. But they didn't know how far I was willing to go. And they had no idea that the only person who still had copies of everything, every will, every account statement, every document was me. And Mom, because she left something behind they didn't know existed. The first twist hit me in April, on a random Wednesday afternoon, when I got a call from Mom's old probate attorney, Mr. Halpern. He hadn't heard from me since the funeral, so I figured he was just checking in about routine paperwork. Instead, his first words were, "I received notice your mother's accounts were restructured. I assumed you approved it." I froze. "What accounts?" He sighed like he already knew the answer. "Her personal investment accounts, the ones designated to be split evenly between you and your brother." My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. "I didn't approve anything," he paused. "Your father sent the authorization, but the transfer listed Ryan as the primary heir. You were removed entirely." I couldn't breathe. For a moment, I actually thought the room tilted sideways. "Removed," I said. That's not even possible. Those accounts can't be changed after death." "They can't," he agreed quietly. "Which is why I'm calling you." I remember gripping the edge of my kitchen counter so tightly my hands hurt. I felt heat rising through my chest, the kind of heat that doesn't come from panic but from rage, cold rage. "Send me everything," I said. "Every form, every signature, every timestamp." When the email came through, I opened the documents and felt all the blood drain from my face. Because the signatures weren't forged. They were mine, my name, my handwriting, my signature on a transfer authorization form I had never seen in my life. For a second, I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. I stared at the signature over and over, waiting for it to morph into something that made sense. Then I saw the date, the time, and the location. Signed, at Dad's house. On the same day Ryan had kicked me out months earlier. At a time when I wasn't even in the state, I was at work in downtown Columbus. I checked my phone calendar. I checked my emails. I checked my GPS logs. I checked everything until my hands started shaking. Someone had copied my signature. Not traced. Not forged in a sloppy, desperate way. Copied, precisely. Dad had access to enough old-school paperwork of mine to do it. Ryan knew how to imitate my handwriting. He used to make fun of it, copying it on scrap paper when we were kids. They had both been digging through documents for months. But seeing it on an actual legal form hit me with a mix of fury and disbelief I can't even explain. I called Dad. He didn't answer. I called Ryan. His response, he laughed. "Wow, you sound stressed. Are you sure you're okay? You know how you get." The condescension in his voice, I swear something inside me calcified right then. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was done. That night I drove to my storage unit, the only place where all the boxes of Mom's real documents were stored. The ones she gave me the day she realized how sick she really was. She'd said, "Keep these somewhere safe. Somewhere only you know." I thought she meant safe from fire or safe from water damage. But the second I opened those boxes and saw the original account statements, the original designations, the original notarized will, I understood. Mom didn't trust Dad, she didn't trust Ryan, she'd trusted me. And the worst part? There was another envelope inside the box. One I'd never opened before. It had my name on it, written in her handwriting. And that envelope changed everything. I didn't open the envelope right away. I just held it. My mom's handwriting always hit me like a punch to the chest, steady, looping cursive, the kind she learned from Catholic school nuns who cared more about penmanship than mercy. Seeing my name written by her hand felt like hearing her call me from another room. I sat down on the cold concrete floor of the storage unit, took a breath, and finally tore it open. Inside was a single page. No greeting. No rambling. Just a paragraph in her calm, precise handwriting. "If anything happens with the estate after I'm gone, do not confront them. Do not argue. Do not try to convince anyone. Go straight to the law. I've kept copies and left instructions because I know your father will let Ryan steer. Protect yourself. Protect what's yours. And don't let them gaslight you into thinking you're unstable. You see clearly. They do not." I read it over and over until the words carved themselves into me. For the first time in months, I felt steady. Not angry, not overwhelmed, just focused. The plan formed almost instantly. I drove home and called Lauren, my attorney. She listened without interrupting as I explained everything: the forged signature, the restructuring of Mom's accounts, the missing papers, the envelope Mom had left for me. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said, "We're not just dealing with estate interference anymore, we're dealing with fraud. Potential felony fraud." I asked, "What do I do?" Her answer was the first sentence that made me feel safe in nearly a year. "We build a case, quietly." So that's what I did. March through June became a slow, methodical collection of proof. Not revenge, not yet, just evidence. I documented everything: texts, emails, photos of missing items, timestamps. I pulled my work logs for the day the forged signature was supposedly signed. I retrieved my building's security footage of me entering and leaving that day. I saved bank statements. I tracked every change Dad and Ryan made. Lauren helped me file requests for the original digital authorizations, metadata, and recorded IP addresses tied to the fraudulent transfer. When the records came back, they showed exactly what we expected. The request came from Dad's home network, more specifically from Ryan's device. I didn't confront them. I didn't hint that I knew anything. When Dad called to check in and suggested I calm down and move on, I said, "Sure, Dad." When Ryan left a voicemail saying, "You're dragging this out because you love drama," I deleted it and saved a copy for the file. I never gave them the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, I made two more moves Mom would have been proud of. First, I met with a forensic handwriting expert. They compared the real signature samples I provided with the forged ones. Their conclusion was clear: deliberate replication, not authentic writing. Second, I filed a petition in probate court, quietly, for immediate estate protection and a freeze on all account changes pending investigation. The court granted it. Dad and Ryan weren't notified yet, not until the sheriff served them. All summer, I lived in silence, waiting. I avoided driving past the house. I avoided thinking about holidays, or shared memories, or anything that would make me soften. Because with every new piece of proof, something became clearer. They didn't just disrespect me. They didn't just dismiss me. They tried to erase me. Mom had seen it coming. She'd tried to protect me. And now it was my turn to protect everything she left behind. By September, the case was airtight. Lauren looked at me across her desk and said, "We're ready." And for the first time, I actually believed her. The only thing left, the one thing I hadn't prepared myself for, was the second twist. And it hit harder than anything that came before. The second twist didn't come from my dad, or Ryan, or even the court. It came from a random envelope taped to my apartment door in early October. No return address, no handwriting I recognized, just my name written in thick black marker. For a second, I thought it was another petty stunt from Ryan. But the second I opened it, I realized this was something entirely different. Inside were photographs, not digital printouts. Actual glossy photos, like someone still using a cheap drugstore kiosk. The first photo was my mom, sitting at the kitchen table in our old house. She looked tired but alert. There was a date stamp in the corner, 9 months before she died. The second photo was my dad, standing in the doorway behind her. His posture was stiff. He was watching her with this expression I'd never seen before: annoyed, almost angry. The third photo hit me so hard I had to sit down on the hallway floor. It was my mom again. Same table, same timestamp. But this time, she was writing something in her planner, and her planner was open to a page titled, "Estate Adjustments, Contingency Plan." The fourth photo was a close-up of that page. And in her handwriting, her unmistakable handwriting, she had written, "If I become incapacitated, do not allow Dad or Ryan access to my accounts. They will prioritize themselves and not the estate. All documents should go to my name." I felt physically sick. She had known. She had known a year before she died, not just suspected, but known. I flipped to the next photo expecting another page of her planner. Instead, it was a picture of Ryan, taken without him knowing, going through my mom's desk. This time the timestamp was only 3 weeks before she passed. He was holding one of her file folders. He looked nervous, like he was listening for footsteps. The last photo was the worst of all. It was my dad, sitting on the edge of my mom's hospital bed while she slept. His hand wasn't holding hers. He was holding her purse, and he was going through it. The timestamp on that one was 2 days before she went into hospice. By the time I looked up from the stack of photos, My hands were shaking uncontrollably. My first instinct was to call Lauren, but something told me to look inside the envelope again. There was a note at the bottom, typed, not handwritten. It said, "She wanted someone to know the truth. Your father kept these hidden. I'm returning them because it's the right thing. Don't contact me." No name, no signature, no clue who it came from. I sat in silence for a long time. The hallway felt colder. My heartbeat sounded too loud in my ears. The photos weren't just evidence. They were a window into something uglier than I had ever imagined. My family hadn't changed after Mom died. They'd already been this way. They'd simply gotten bolder once she was too sick to protect anything. When I finally walked back inside my apartment, I realized something. This wasn't just fraud. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated. And whatever reason they thought they had, it wasn't going to be something mild or forgivable. The truth behind what they did was darker, and I wasn't even close to ready for it. I wish I could tell you the villain's reason was simple: greed, selfishness, entitlement. Those would have been easier to swallow. But when the truth finally came out, it hit me like someone had taken a shovel to the back of my skull. It happened during the deposition phase. Dad had tried to delay it, claimed he was too stressed and emotionally overwhelmed. The judge didn't care. He was ordered to appear, Ryan too. Both were required to answer questions under oath about the estate, the forged signature, the missing documents, and the unauthorized transfer. I wasn't allowed in the room during Dad's deposition, but Lauren was. She told me later everything he said, word for word. And even though I wasn't physically there, I swear I felt every sentence carve something out of me. She said he walked in smug, already irritated, already rehearsing excuses. But when the questioning turned toward the forged signature and the restructuring of Mom's accounts, he cracked, just a hairline fracture, but enough. It started when the opposing counsel asked, "Why did you remove your daughter from the accounts?" Dad sighed. "Because she wouldn't know what to do with the money." "Why not? She'd waste it." "On what?" He hesitated. Then he said the sentence that would haunt me long after this was all over. "On finding out the truth about her mother." Lauren told me the room went silent, like everyone froze. The attorney asked, "What truth?" Dad rubbed his face with both hands. "She was going to dig. She always digs." "Dig into what?" He let out this frustrated exhale, the same one he used on me when I was a kid and asked too many questions. Then he said it. "She would have found out the insurance wasn't supposed to go to her. It was supposed to go to me and Ryan. We were the ones who needed it. We had plans. And she," he waved his hand like swatting a fly, "she never needed to be part of that." Lauren said. The attorney leaned forward. "What plans?" Dad's face went flat, cold, emotionless. "We were supposed to sell the house, start a business, use the insurance, use the accounts. My daughter complicates things, she always has. She gets emotional, she doesn't think practically." The attorney said, "Your wife's will did not reflect that." Dad didn't blink. "She didn't understand what was best." "What exactly did you believe your daughter would do if she inherited her share?" Dad didn't answer right away. He stared down at his hands. Then he said, "She'd spend it on therapists and counselors and whatever she uses to feel strong. And then she'd question everything. She'd ask why her mother was alone so much at the end. She'd look into things. She'd talk to people. She'd figure out that the paperwork wasn't right, that some decisions weren't hers to inherit, and she'd ruin everything we'd been planning before my wife got sick." "We," the attorney repeated, meaning him and Ryan. Lauren said Dad didn't correct it. Then came the final question, "What exactly were you protecting?" And Dad answered with the sentence that felt like someone pouring ice water through my veins. "My daughter was never supposed to have power in this family. Ryan and I were supposed to handle the estate. She was supposed to stay in her lane." Stay in her lane, not because I was unstable, not because I was emotional, not because they thought I couldn't manage money, but because control was their religion. Ownership was their identity, and I had become a threat simply by refusing to disappear. They didn't want my share. They wanted my silence. They wanted me small, confused, and easy to push around. And when I didn't shrink like they expected, they tried to erase me instead. After Lauren told me all of this, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't shake. I just felt a cold, steady clarity. They took everything Mom warned me about and proved her right. And now it was time to let the consequences finally reach them. The morning everything went down was a gray, Quiet Friday in late November. Almost exactly a year after the Thanksgiving, they kicked me out and burned my lawyer's letter. Fitting, honestly. Poetic in a way I didn't have to try for. I drove to my dad's house in Columbus with the sheriff's deputy following behind me. Lauren had arranged everything. The court order, the property freeze, the fraud investigation, and the mandatory retrieval of protected estate documents. Everything was official, stamped, certified, and undeniable. As we pulled up, Ryan's truck was already in the driveway. Figures. He'd probably moved in permanently by then, setting up shop like he'd already inherited the place. The sheriff walked up beside me. "Ready?" I nodded, not dramatic. Not shaking, just done. The deputy knocked. Hard. Ryan opened the door, still in his basketball shorts and smug morning face. The expression dropped the second he saw the badge. "What the hell is this?" he asked. The deputy said, "We're here to serve a court order involving the estate of your mother. Please move aside." Ryan didn't. "This is ridiculous. She's making stuff up." Then he saw me, and his face changed, not to fear, to anger. Like I had done something to him. "You seriously brought a cop?" he snapped. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The deputy stepped past him and repeated, "Move aside." Ryan finally backed up, muttering under his breath. Dad came down the stairs next, wearing the old robe Mom bought him one Christmas. It made me angry just seeing it on him. He started talking fast, classic dad panic mode masked as condescension. "This is unnecessary," he said to the deputy. "My daughter is confused. She's been emotional. The deputy cut him off. "Sir, you are named in allegations of fraud. Anything you say from this point forward should be with legal counsel present." That shut him up fast. We all moved into the living room. The same room where they'd laughed at me. The same room where my letter burned. The deputy handed them the court order. All account changes reversed pending investigation, property freeze, mandatory return of all estate documents. A forensic audit, fraud charges under review. Dad's hands trembled as he skimmed it. Ryan snatched it from him like he thought speed reading would make it less real. "You can't do this," Ryan spat. "Dad has rights, we have rights." Lauren stepped inside then, calm, professional, deadly. "And so does my client, all of which you violated." Ryan turned red. "She's lying. She has 3 years of documentation," Lauren said. "You have forged signatures, unauthorized transfers, and photos of you accessing your mother's documents while she was incapacitated." Ryan froze. Dad sank into the couch like someone had knocked the air out of him. The deputy said, "At this time, we need all estate-related paperwork turned over." Dad muttered something about misunderstandings, but he still walked to the desk. Ryan followed him, still glaring at me, muttering under his breath. What they placed on the table wasn't even half of what they'd taken. Some documents were missing, others were damaged. Some had been stuffed into random envelopes to hide the dates. Lauren cataloged everything. The deputy photographed everything. And I watched everything. No shaking, no guilt, no hesitation. When they were finally done, the deputy turned to me. "Do you have anything you need to collect today?" I looked at Dad. At Ryan. At the house that never protected me. "No," I said. "I'm already done here." The deputy nodded and opened the door for me. As I stepped outside, Ryan suddenly burst forward. "You ruined this family," he yelled. "You think Mom would have wanted this?" I didn't even look at him when I answered. "She warned me," I said quietly. "She saw you coming before anyone else did." The silence after that was heavier than anything. Dad didn't defend him. Didn't deny it. Didn't say a single word. The case took months, but the ending held firm. All forged transfers reversed, full audit exposing thousands taken from Mom's accounts, civil penalty repayment. My inheritance restored, Dad removed as executor, Ryan barred from handling any part of the estate. Fraud charges negotiated into a settlement that drained every cent they tried to take by the following summer. The house had to be sold to pay the penalties. And none of that brought me joy. But it brought me closure. A clean, steady kind of closure that felt exactly like what Mom meant when she wrote, "You see clearly." I kept the original documents in a fireproof safe. And on the final day of the settlement, as we signed the last papers, I slid a copy of Mom's letter across the table toward them. Dad read it. Ryan refused to. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. On my way out, I turned back one last time and said, "You should have left the letter alone." And then I walked away.